Hey everybody, welcome back to Omens. I'm your host Ryan, AM air pronouns, and it's July. It's July 2021. Hope your year's going so far. Not quite as crappy as last year, but still not the best year, I think, for most people. Um, but yeah, today we're going to be talking about the Knight of Wands, which is okay. So technically, court cards don't have numbers. But curiously enough, I'm gonna go ahead and throw a little bit of numerology in there, not specifically. So I don't think we did it for the pages, but like pages would technically be in the order of cards. If we wanted to go from ace to king, they'd be card 11, which is, well, quote, um, it's known as a master number in most numerology. There are very few in numerology. There are very few agreed upon master numbers. 11 and 22 being the only ones that are continuously agreed upon. After that, it gets kind of subjective and argumentative. But like say the pages would be 11, which is a double one. So anything you apply to one, um, apply to the 11 twice over. Plus, it also creates a 2. So in that following that, knights would be kind of card 12. So more specifically, the first part we're getting into is talking about the knights in general. So I have here my Gilded Tarot Knight of Wands, and this dude's all done up in full medieval regalia and armor, holding a wand. His helmet's closed. His horse is in full fashionable dress. Is all done up in reds and oranges and gold. Yeah, he looks like quite the regal one. Now, as opposed to most depictions of the knight, like say based off the RWS, the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, the knight's usually rearing, and his horse is his horse is usually rearing and kind of jumping ahead. This one here in the Gilded Tarot is a bit more stoic. His horse is just lifting up its front leg as if to walk forward very prettily. It is prancing, because most horses don't lift their legs up that high, like all the way bent at the knee, and just walking. So this is a bit of a dress horse here. But so talking about the knights in general, if we're going to throw a little bit of the numbers in there, the knight would be card 12, or depending on your deck, it might be the prince, if it's a Toph deck or something similar. It's also known as the prince, and I have one deck that in which the knights are known as the messengers. So, but anyway, um, I'm kind of going back and forth here. Sorry. All right, so let's stick with the knights. We'll get to numbers in a second. So the knights they're no longer the pages. They're not as impulsive and wide-eyed and oh my gosh, I've just been given this thing by the page like the pages are. But they've still got that page impulsivity. They're still new to this. They're still brand new. They're only just kind of starting on their journey. Um, and they're kind of what's the order? I think it's apprentice, a journeyman, adept, and then a master. So if we go by that, the knights would be the journeymen. They've been given the tools, they know a bit about it, they kind of know how to use it, and they're just starting out really doing things. And so they're a bit impulsive. They've got this wide open, they've got all these possibilities. And they're no longer an apprentice, so they've been given free reign to actually try their ideas type deal. But they want to be the master of it. They want to reach that kingship real fast. Like they want to pretend that they are that, or at least close to. So they're kind of trying to balance that impulsive page and that stoic king. Um, One author calls the knights the frat boys of the tarot. And if you think about it, college boys tend to be both. They're either hyper focused on what they're doing because they've got a shit ton of school to get through, and they've got to get all this done so they can do the fun stuff. And then once that's over, they're super excited. they're either hyper focused or they're super excited. They will do all kinds of crazy stuff. Like they tend to be pack animals too. They tend to exemplify the pack animals that we are pretty much. They're never they're never both at the same time. They're either or. Um, and we can see that. And if we bring a little of that numbers in here, the knights are basically card 12. So it's a one. It's not a master number, and it should be broken down. It should be broken down even farther to a single digit. But we want to look at the numbers that it is. So a 12 is a 1 and a 2. 1 plus 2 equals 3. So the knights are 1, 2, 3. So to put it down to just like the basic keywords for the numbers, 1 is the self, 2 is duality, and 3 is creation. So that's perfect for the knights because they are the ego, the self, but they're also recognizing outside of them, the duality outside of them, the fact that they are not the only one, whereas the pages are double into themselves and just starting to recognize the outside. Knights have that full of self, but also there's outside. And with all that outside, I can create new things. There's so much newness, basically. So self plus duality equals creation type deal. So that's kind of the knights as a whole. And with this Knight of Wands, it's even more that creation stuff because wands, of course, are creation. Um, but yeah, so that's that. So the next part of the knights, of course, is our celestial deck, which is our first part of our astrology. So here in the celestial, the Knight of Wands is known as the Prince of Wands. He is associated with Sagittarius, mutable fire, the Cavalier ninth house of philosophy. And side note, philosophy, we usually think old guys sitting around smoking and arguing about like the most ridiculous out there theories that you could imagine. And that doesn't sound very fun. Philosophy, in its purest sense of the word, broken down to its Greek, basically, literally just means love of wisdom, love of learning, love of knowledge, just wanting to know. Um, and this Prince of Wands exemplifies that here because we've got a young man in sandals and a tunic just at the bottom of the stairs of a flight of stairs with no railings. Wind sweeping up the stairs, and he's definitely like, oh, cool, about to run up there. And he looks a little bit hesitant, but the centaur by his side, there's a centaur by his side, by the way, is dashing forward. So centaurs are impulsivity. They're the most bestial of the mythological animals, or one of the most bestial in Greek mythology. And I think we've talked about centaurs before on here. They represented the most raw animalistic instincts of humans in the worst way possible. They were partiers and orgiers, which often included a lot of rape, or non-consensual sex, if we want to keep it a little bit uh, uh, not so direct here. Though that's never stopped me before. But anyway, so the Prince of Wands is associated with Sagittarius. So I think so. That impulsivity and that recklessness of the centaur is all for dashing ahead. The prince here himself is kind of like, oh, this looks so cool. I'm ready to go. I'm like totally off in kind of a daydream. He's got kind of a dazed daydream look, like, oh my gosh, all the things I can do and see all this ahead of me. Like, it's mind blowing for him, pretty much. And that is kind of what Sagittarius is about. Sagittarius is just all about learning, adventure, inspiration and changeability, movement and action, travel. It's Sagittarius is the ruler of the ninth house of our natal charts, which is the house of travel, learning, physical training, a quest for meaning, pursuit of wisdom, and spiritual experiences. All of this is it's just this mind blow stuff. It's where we get out and we really start exploring and learning, and it's kind of the big thing, pretty much. Um, so in the celestial, the Prince of Wands is associated with Sagittarius, and that uh, conforms to the traditional astrology of the tarot in that the knights are associated, or the Knight of Wands is associated with Sagittarius. All the knights are associated with mutable fire sign or mutable signs in their elements. So just kind of continuing that, we've got just the basic, the traditional astrology, and I've got my Black Cat's tarot here for this, and we've got a black cat riding a white. See, I call them horses except for they have paws, so I'm not sure what they're actually supposed to be. The card deck doesn't say. I have to like their paws and their very long fur is well, horses have fur. Doesn't look quite like a horse, but it's a bit like a horse. But anyway, there's this black cat holding with a wand by his side, riding a horse that's leaping over a chasm, like an immense chasm. Um, Now, in traditional astrology, the Knight of Wands is associated with Sagittarius, but specifically with court cards is they bring the energy from the previous sign into the next sign, so they're actually associated with 10 degrees of the previous sign. So for the Knight of Wands, it's 20 degrees of Scorpio all the way through 19 degrees of Sagittarius. So there's a little bit of that depth and mystery from Scorpio being brought forward into the excitement and high energy passion of Sagittarius here, um, which is kind of exemplified in this card because that chasm, that unknown mystery, this writer is leaping over it from one side to another. It's like we don't know where he's been, where he's going, what she's seeing, what she's doing, but she's going full headlong into it, into the mystery, into the depths. Um, this card is the Spellbind Fire, which can be destructive if it's not contained prop, properly. Which kind of harkens back to that centaur, because while centaurs were some of the most destructive creatures out there, there were, of course, your centaurs like Chiron, who was the teacher of many great heroes and demigods, because he contained and controlled his animal instincts, and he learned to direct those energies to a passion, and he helped others direct their energies and their passion to a focus. He helped them focus their passion, pretty much. The title, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn's title for this card is the Unstoppable Explorer. And if we're going based on their elements, the Knight of Wands is double fire because the Knights are fire and then Wands are fire. So you got pure raging fire. Again, with the keywords kind of being wide-ranging interest, like want to explore everything, go everywhere. There's so much to explore. So a bit of that Scorpio again, and then the Sagittarius exploration, of course. It's craving for philosophical and spiritual conquest. Fascinated by foreign people and cultures. They tend to go out of their way to travel places, meet people, and just experience life in general. Sagittarius. Now, the one kind of drawback with the Knight of Wands is that the fact that Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is known as the greater benefic. So there's two benefics. Jupiter's the greater, Venus is the lesser benefic. And it just means that their benefic just means that they are planets that tend to give good fortune. They're where you can find your good fortune in your chart, basically. And Sagittarius being ruled by that, Knight of Wands being ruled by Jupiter, the greater benefic. Jupiter is known as like basically the planet of good luck, expansion, and growth, and just Amazing. So their constant, and we can see it here, that constant good luck kind of can translate a little to that nothing can hurt me attitude, that I'm immortal and unstoppable attitude. So here again, that recklessness with the knight jumping over a chasm. Um, Basically, these knights can be reckless and dumb. If they can be very, very not cautious, basically. So it's kind of a little bit of a drawback with one of the little drawbacks with these knights. Now in the Kabalah for the Knight of Wands, and I've got my good tarot here, which again the name for these is the Messenger of Fire. This is the Messenger of Fire, and we have a young girl here that's kind of done up. She's done up in a red sleeveless dress, and with a basically a candelabra, well, not quite a candelabra, a crown of candles on her head. She's got the fire red hair, and she's just kind of looking like fascinated and just exploratory, fierce, fascinated and fierce. Like she's got her arms held a little bit defensively, like "don't hurt me or I will fuck you up" type deal. But it's that I'm scared, but I'm trying to look fiercer than you type deal, which makes sense because it's like I said, the knights are just starting out. They're journeymen. They've just been let loose, basically. They've learned what they needed to as an apprentice. Now they've been let loose to like really start exploring, and that's gonna be kind of scary. It's like, shit, there's not much of a safety net. It's like one of my safety nets is gone, type deal. Now I've actually got to go out there and do stuff. So in the Kabbalah, yeah, again with that gifts are received as pages. Now we must figure out what to do with them, type deal. Um, it's time to move into. So basically, in the Kabbalah, the knights correspond. Well, in the Kabbalah, I follow. Again, from Isabel Riddell Kliegman. So in traditional Kabbalah, the knights usually correspond to the third world of the Kabbalistic tree of life. The one I agree with is the one where they correspond to the second world, which is Bariah, the world of creation. And the reason for that is because the knights are actually getting out there. They've had the ideas, they've been given the knowledge, and now they're actually getting out there and starting to create, um, to take these raw ideas and actually start discarding those that are kind of useless or not at all feasible, and finding the ones that are feasible and starting to actually put plans into place. There's the knights are where the knights in the world of creation are where we start to actually plan, where we're like, okay, we've had this jumble of ideas, and now we've got to narrow it down, pick our focus, and actually start drawing out our diagram. What is our plan? What are we doing? Um, Also, as pointed, um, so I'm getting this straight from basically her section of the Knight of Wands. So knights are the only court cards that are actually going somewhere because they're the only ones seated on horses. So again, with that messenger aspect, which is why. So when I was first learning tarot, I learned pages as the messengers because the youngest little courtesans you'd send as the gophers. However, if you think about it, and I still kind of consider them messengers, but more like short distance, like you're sending them across the palace courtyard type deal. Knights makes more sense as like long distance messengers because they're on horses, so they're taking one from one castle to a whole nother castle type deal, or from one kingdom to another. And they're a bit more protected than pages would be. They've got the ability to fight off animals and attackers on the road. They can protect themselves and go places, so they're definitely more messengers. So they're actually moving. They're the only court cards moving and going places. Um, they're in the process of both exploration and change. Bariah is, again, with that world of creation, it's like exploration and change. It's like, okay, can't do this, can do this, thought we could do this, but oh, nope, we can't, so let's change it up, let's combine this to separate that. Yeah, they're moving fast, and they're kind of uncertain. Okay, so the Knight of Wands himself, or the Messenger of Wands, moving fast and uncertain, gets a thought and jumps on it. The Knight of Wands is like all about the intuition, and following his own gut type deal. Actually, we're gonna save that little bit for at the end of the episode. I kind of like mixed it all together here. Um, yeah, so in the world of creating. Following that up, of course, we've got our Kabbalistic Angel, which is Haheuya, um, Haheuya, whose name means God, the good in himself. So, the good in God, or God who is good, basically. Um, This is Haheuya is one of the thrones. Their psalm is Psalm 147:11, and basically their role as an angelic being, as a throne, is to obtain grace and mercy from God. And basically, they're like, hey, no, this made you pissed off, but how about giving them a slide, basically letting it slide type deal. So they obtain grace and mercy from God. They rule over exiles and prisoners. And here's where things get a little bit interesting. They've got two different sides. So they both, on the one hand, they work against the discovery of secret crimes, which kind of ties in with that ruling of prisoners and exiles. So it's like those who have been downtrodden are having to break the law in order to do stuff. So they kind of protect and work against the discovery of such things, like making sure that the law can't actually find out about these plans type deal. However, they also Haheuya also protects from animals and assassins. So, on the one hand, they prevent the discovery of these crimes, but on the other hand, they also help with discovery with specific secret crimes type deal. It's more than likely, it sounds kind of like, say, if you're going out and thieving something, that's not a big deal. However, if you're going to like actually kill someone, you're not. If you're an assassin, probably don't call upon them because they protect against that. And it also makes sense for messengers, like I said, going out on the road. The knights going out on the road, sending messengers, taking messages between kingdoms. They're going to want protection against animals, wild beast attacks, and any sort of assassins or whatever, or similar, that might be trying to stop the message. So those born under Haheuya love the truth and the sciences and will be sincere in their words and deeds. The Haheuya is the soul guardian for those born from 7:40 to 8 a.m., the physical guardian for those born July 13th to 17th. Hey, it works with our month. And the moral guardian of those born on January 25th, April 12th, June 23rd, September 3rd, and November 14th. Alright, so that's the Kabbalistic Angel. Next part, of course, is our being or beast or whatever. I forgot being and wrote beast, which doesn't quite work. So our Knight of Wands in the Fantasy World Tarot is Hanuman. And Hanuman is a Hindu deity who is... he's got an interesting story. He's the monkey god, first off. And most likely he's also the basis for Sun Wukong in Chinese mythology. And hang on, forgot to pull this thing up. So he's a Hindu god. He is one of the divine Vanara, which Vanara means a forest dweller, and it's most often used for monkeys. So he's the divine monkey type deal, or the divine forest dweller. Um, he was a companion to Rama, who is one of Vishnu's incarnations, the Hindu god Vishnu. Rama himself is also basically seen as a deity, as opposed, because in Hinduism, a lot of deities can be incarnations of each other. So you have those that say Rama is just an incarnation of Vishnu, and those that say Rama is a divine deity, god in his own right, and or as well as or both. Which honestly, just given the mythology, I'd say it's probably more like both. Um, he's kind of basically Rama was basically a demigod who was an incarnation of a full god or of a god. And not only was a companion to Rama, he was also a devotee of Rama, like and as very sincere devotee to the point where at one point he, near the end of Rama's story and whatnot, he was like asked to prove his devotion to Rama, and he actually tore his chest open so they could see that on his heart was Rama's mark, or was a picture of Rama. And they're like, "Oh, that's cool." And Rama's like, "Let me just heal that up real quick so you don't die, maybe." Like, just put your chest back together, okay? We're good. We're good. um, he is also one of the Chiranjivas, which is one of the 8 immortals destined to live to the end of the current Kali Yuga. So in Hinduistic views of the world, there are different slots of times. A yuga is, I forget the exact amount of time, but it's a very large, I think it's like 9 million years or something like. It's in the millions of years, I know that much. Millions or billions of years. Actually, I think it's more like billions. Maybe trillions. It's like, it's huge. I'll just leave it that. Like, a yuga is a huge amount of time, which is kind of considered to be like a birth to death of a universe, basically. And we're currently in the Kali Yuga, which, yes, does pertain to the goddess Kali, which is destruction and death and chaos. Basically, her premise is to destroy that which is unclean and unworthy and no good, and rebirth something better. So, yeah. So he's one of the 8 immortals destined to live to the end of the universe, basically. Um, Hanuman is sort of the son of the wind god Vayu. He's considered the son of the god because of Vayu's uh, role in his birth. And I'm going to read you the story from Wikipedia. So, according to Hindu legends, Hanuman was born to mother Anjana and father Kesari. Hanuman is also called the son of the deity Vayu because of legends associated with Vayu's role in Hanuman's birth. One story mentioned in Eknath's Bhavaratha Ramayana, 16th century CE, states that when Anjana was worshipping Vayu, the king Dasharatha of Ayodhya, I'm probably butchering the Sanskrit, I'm sorry, was also performing the ritual of Putra Kameshti Yagna in order to have children. As a result, he received some sacred pudding, payasam, to be shared by his 3 wives, leading to the births of Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata, and Shatrughna. By divine ordinance, a kite, the bird, not like the toy, snatched a fragment of that pudding and dropped it while flying over the forest where Anjana was engaged in worship. Vayu, the Hindu deity of the wind, delivered the falling pudding to the outstretched hands of Anjana, who consumed it, leading to the birth of Hanuman. So basically, the wind kind of like the bird picked it up, and the wind made sure it got to the lady type deal. So that's why Hanuman is considered the son of the wind god. Which, yeah, okay. Let's see. So he's known as he's like a major hero, and I know for a short while during his mythology, he was at one point like he learned a great deal of divine powers, and then because of he was cursed. I think he was. I was reading all this last night. You think I'd remember more off the top of my head? But for a short while, he was cursed to forget all the stuff he'd learned, and then when he like actually became one of Rama's companions, and was going on travels and stuff, and they were trying to find this lady who'd been kidnapped by a demon. They came to a great ocean. They need to get over to an island in the middle, and they're like, "Crap, none of us can actually get over there." And then one of them was like, "Oh, hey, wait a second. Hanuman technically has the ability to do this. He's just forgotten all of it because of curse. So let me remove that real quick." And then he remembers everything, and all of his divine powers come back. And well, long story short, they eventually end up rescuing the lady, but she's got to apparently, according to Hindu culture, be rescued by her husband specifically. So they had to. So Hanuman causes a mess, goes back, a purposeful mess, I should say. Goes back, tells his companions, they go get the husband, and then take him all the way back to go actually rescue the wife, which was actually kind of cool. But so Hanuman himself is the god of wisdom, strength, courage, devotion, self-discipline. He's also slowly become the god of martial arts over time. Originally, it started with wrestlers, and then slowly, just like other martial artists, started because he's the exemplary warrior. Basically, he is the Hindu's exemplary warrior, I should say. He is both religiously devoted, and he's um, he's both religiously devoted, like religiously strict and devoted, as well as very much of the warrior class. He is a gifted. I took this straight from Wikipedia. A gifted grammarian, a meditating yogi, and a diligent scholar. Which, if you think about it, that's everything that's supposed to be included in a warrior. Is not only someone who's very physically prowess, but also their mind. They exercise both their mind and their spirituality to their absolute fullest extent. So that ties on pretty well with the Knight of Wands, because he's rash and impulsive and will sometimes make mistakes, but when he does, he's like, whoops, that fucked up. Let's go do whatever we need to do to fix it type deal. Like, Knight of Wands do not sit in guilt. They're like, well, that didn't work. Let's try something different. And they will just constantly keep just going. They're full of confidence and vigor, and again with that Sagittarius, that spiritual seeker, that wanting to actually constantly grow in wisdom and knowledge, and just basically expand themselves exponentially. So that's Hanuman. So to tie all of that together, I have my supernatural tarot, which the Knight of Bones is the Knight of Wands, and her name is Ugh. Just had all this. Aaliyah, I know who she is. I just, for the life of me, keep forgetting her name because it's kind of difficult for me to say, sadly. She is, other way. Eileen Lehay. Wow, that's the back of the card. Eileen Lehay, I'm not sure how to pronounce her last name. I just know her first name is Eileen. And she is the hunter who... She was hunting a banshee who killed her parents and left her deaf as a baby. She's kind of... She's hard-headed, takes her own way. She won't take no shit from anybody. But she's also kind and compassionate. And yeah, she's... I don't remember a whole lot about her. It's been a little bit since I watched the show. But so for the kind of the traditional meanings, upright, the Knight of Wands or Knight of Bones equals confidence, growth, moving forward, daring, and adventure. Someone who has experienced life to the fullest. Someone who's open-minded and adaptable, just wanting to constantly grow. Someone who um, might be moving fast and uncertainly, but they get a thought, and they just jump on it. They're like, okay, this sounds cool, let's go do it. Um, Intuition leads, but they tend to leave behind their head. So it's like logic is out the window. Yes, intuition is great. But it kind of helps to have a little bit of to bring your mind along at the same time. Knight of Wands tend to just leave it and just go, we're going. Um, Everything is a learning experience for them. They're constantly just everything. The risk taker, they follow they're a flow follower, but their own flow. They follow their own flow. They're like, well, let's go down over here, then back over there. Um, and they're all about the spiritual ascension. Just keep going higher and higher and higher. In reverse, recklessness gets bad. It like reckless as in dangerous. They're impulsive and impetuous. They're reckless and aggressive and callous. They're um, a solid person because the Knight of Wands is pretty solid. They're not as like high. They're not as flighty as the Knight of Swords would be, but so they're a solid person, but they're um, in their reverse aspect, it's a solid person who gives into their impulses with no thought. They're kind of immature. They're just like, let's just go. Let's go do these random things that make no sense type deal. So that's kind of their unhealthy shadow side is the impulsivity and recklessness that can cause them and others to get hurt, basically. Upright, however, that confidence and that recklessness directed correctly and held in check so it doesn't hurt anyone is a great thing. If it comes up for you, it's like, if it comes up in a reading, it's probably kind of you need to be a little bit more impulsive right now. You need to actually get some movement going. Like, just jump, make that leap. Like, quit holding back, quit trying to overthink, just go with your gut, go. Now, if it comes up in reverse, it's maybe more of a, okay, you're being too reckless. You need to take a step back and go over this again. Rethink shit for a second. So, yeah. So that is the Knight of Wands. I hope that was informative and interesting. Not as entertaining as most of my videos have been, but meh. Alright, so yeah. Thank you all for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe below. Find me on Facebook. Currently at Bags and Omens. I might be changing that name though here soon. I'm considering it. You can email me at bagsandomens@gmail.com. All the links will be in the description. Yada yada yada. Y'all know the drill. But alright, so have a fun rest of your whatever, and I will see you next week with the zodiac sign of Cancer. So, yeah, doodles, have fun, bye.